Welcome to The Advocate's Voice, Personal Injury with David Maran.
Welcome to The Advocate's Voice with David Maran and John Clemence. With more than 30 years in the courtroom, David's here to help guide you through the confusing world of injury law, one conversation at a time. Today's episode tackles an issue that affects both drivers and pedestrians. What happens after a pedestrian accident? From determining fault to what to do if you're hit or involved as a driver, we're getting into the practical steps and legal facts that New Jersey residents need to know. So first of all, David, welcome back to the show.
Good morning, John.
Good morning. I'm happy to talk with you today. So let's go ahead and dive in. The first question is, when a pedestrian is hit by a car in New Jersey, how is fault typically found?
Fault is found based on the position of the pedestrian, or if they're on a bicycle, where they are when the impact occurs. Basically, what's known as the point of impact, and what everyone's duties and obligations are at that moment. For example, if your pedestrian is in a crosswalk, that car has the absolute obligation to stop and wait until the person has left the crosswalk. That would be rather simple. So we begin with fixing the point of impact, that the pedestrian is in the crosswalk. And that can be done by a variety of things. The easiest, of course, is if there's cameras and the police just merely rerun the cameras and see what the images show. More old-fashioned, you talk to people. Did you see this? What did you see? You talk to the driver and you ask them, did you see the pedestrian before you hit them? You'd be surprised. Sometimes they're going to say no. But if they did say yes, where were you when you first observed the pedestrian? Because that will determine what their obligation is to the pedestrian from then forward. And then, of course, where did impact occur? For example, if they're making a right-hand turn, conceivably at an uncontrolled intersection, if they don't see the pedestrian that's crossing the street, in or without a crosswalk, they're completely responsible. They have fault. And those are the things that the cop is going to be looking at to help determine fault of the accident.
Okay,
The pedestrian has obligations too, of course.
Yeah, that was my next question, actually. Was like,
go ahead.
Because there's the legal aspect, but then I'm just thinking like, well, I'm also like, if I get into a fight with a car as a pedestrian, I'm going to lose. I don't care what the law says, I'm going to lose. So then, yeah, like, talk to us. What, like, as a pedestrian, what obligations do I need to maintain?
Well, start with, don't step off the curb into traffic. It may seem obvious, but it's really important. Yet everyone will tell you pedestrians are always right. In a sense, they are, but when they get hit by that car, they're not. And they certainly come out the loser. Stay on the sidewalk, stay on the curb before you step into the street. If you can reach a crosswalk, walk over there. We teach our children to cross at the intersection. We should do the same. Don't jaywalk. Don't walk directly across the street. Don't step into traffic. Don't ignore traffic signals at an intersection. If the cars which are driving past you all have the green light and you don't have the walk signal, don't walk. Absolutely don't walk. Wait till it's your turn. If it is your turn, they're supposed to stop and wait for you. But I would glance over. I would make sure that they had either stopped or were very apparently in the process of stopping, and then step out. Continue your observations while you cross the street. That's very important. You've seen the car, you know where it is, but continue to glance over or continue to watch it while you cross the street. You may have to make an adjustment just to make sure you are not hit. There are new laws to protect pedestrians, cyclists, even the low-speed electric vehicles that are out today. And that is the Safe Passing Law, only passed in 2024. And it requires everyone in their cars to move over one lane if they see a pedestrian in the roadway coming towards you. If you can't do that, if you can't move over a lane, you have to be able to pass them with a minimum of 4 feet to keep them safe. And if you can't do that, you must slow your vehicle down to 25 miles per hour and then slowly be prepared to stop and pass that pedestrian, bicyclist, um, pretty much anyone who's in the path of travel. And there's the pedestrians are supposed to be walking towards you, but it doesn't matter either way. It's your obligation to keep them safe. Yes, a pedestrian is supposed to stay on the sidewalk if there's a sidewalk available. But we don't always have sidewalks.
Yeah.
But if there is one, good reason to be on it.
Yeah,
Keeps you out of the path of traffic.
I
Yeah.
really like that law because I used to do a bunch of competitive running, so I was running on the streets all the time. So I always appreciated the drivers who realize, like, oh, that's a person that probably needs a little bit more space, and maybe I should slow down instead of getting buzzed at 50 miles an hour. That's not a fun experience.
Oh
So
my
I'm glad
God.
that's the law.
When you feel the wind of that
Yes,
vehicle
yes,
whizzing past you, that's a scary experience. It definitely is.
yes, it really is. So I wanted to ask you as well. We've been talking about these are the rules that the pedestrian has to follow. But if I'm a pedestrian and I'm not following the rules and I still get hit, like how does that affect fault or legality?
New Jersey is a comparative negligence state. We weigh the negligence of both individuals. In the case of car versus pedestrian, both individuals have obligations and must meet them. And if they don't, a jury may someday evaluate who is potentially responsible and in what proportion. So think of it as 100%. The two parties have to add up to 100%. It could be as simple as 50-50, meaning it's both their responsibilities in equal measure. And if so, that pedestrian would get half of what full value would be in their case. Now, New Jersey's an interesting state. If you're 51% responsible and you're the one bringing suit, you lose. You don't get anything. But from zero to 51%, well, no, if you're 50% or below, you get that percentage of total value that the jury awards you. So if they award you 37.5% responsibility, okay, you get the other, what is it, 62.5%
Yeah,
that you receive. So if the jury would ultimately award you $10,000, the judge would then mold that verdict to $6,250.
I see. It's really fascinating to me. So, but if you bring the suit and you're more than half responsible as determined by the jury, then you basically don't get anything. Is that
That's
the
correct.
correct? Oh my
That is
goodness.
absolutely correct. And it's one of the reasons why in New York the values are so much bigger, because in New York you could be 90% at fault and still receive 10% of your damages. So certainly in a pedestrian accident, if you were catastrophically injured and you have an extremely valuable case, even 10% of that large case is worth a lot of money. In New Jersey, we face the threat of complete and total loss. So it's a little bit easier to negotiate with us, and we're at times more than willing to take lesser numbers because we want to ensure a recovery for the client.
Yeah.
And there's a lot of factors that go into that, but those are some of the factors.
Yeah, and I'm glad you specified that this is, or at least should be, about health and recovery as opposed to like hitting the jackpot and winning the lottery, right? This is about a person
Absolutely.
who's who ought hopefully wants to get back to a healthy state more than they want to cash in on some accident.
Yes, that's very true.
Yeah.
And hopefully there's enough medical coverage available to allow them to get well.
Yeah.
And that coverage as a pedestrian, well, gee, if you don't have any coverage at all yourself because you don't own a car and you don't live with anyone who owns a car, the state of New Jersey, through the Unsatisfied Claim and Judgment Fund, will provide full PIP or personal injury protection, which allows up to $250,000 in medical coverage. And that's quite strong. In the past few years, we've, in my opinion, weakened the laws and allowed people to purchase less PIP coverage or personal injury protection coverage, which pays bills. So you could take as little as $15,000 with a pretty high deductible. And while it's maybe enough to get you through an emergency room, there probably wouldn't be too much more. And I mean, if you have strong health insurance, you should be okay. And if you ever have the option of choosing, always choose the maximum PIP if you can, $250,000 in coverage. Because if you get struck as a pedestrian by a 5,000-pound car, not even a truck, car, you don't stand a chance, as you know.
Yeah.
That's what
Yeah,
your fear was when that car whizzed by. You didn't stand a chance, especially at high speed.
And and $250,000 is a lot of money, but when it comes to medical expenses, it's a lot less money than it used to be. So I totally
It's very
understand why
true.
want to take that. So I wanted to ask you as well, David, as regards like submitting a personal injury claim. If let's say I'm a pedestrian, I got hit, I'm coming to you, I'm saying, David, I want to file a claim, but like I don't know how. Like, what are the steps?
Well, hopefully at the scene, you or someone else called the police, and the police came. They did their report. They tried to evaluate where the point of impact was, take statements of drivers, take statements of the pedestrian if possible, and fill out the report. And they would have collected basically all the important documents that are necessary to track down where the claim should be placed. So now you have the all the information that's necessary from their driver's license, the vehicle registration, the insurance information. It's all there on the police report. The insurance information is there. The company in New Jersey is merely identified by a code. But if you looked up insurance codes in New Jersey in Google, you'd have that document with all that information in the first few listings. So if someone's called the police and there is an investigative report, that's a giant step forward for you and for the lawyer, because that at least gives you the information that you require to present this claim. Next step, pretty much is, while you're there and you're able, check out your surroundings. So look around you. Are there witnesses? Are there cameras, perhaps, either at an intersection or at an adjoining business or building? But I think most importantly is right there and then to try to see if there actually were witnesses. Unfortunately, I've found that the police are so busy that sometimes they don't take the time to jot down the name of a person who had self-identified as a witness to the accident. But if you're there and you see someone and you're able, go ahead, ask them, did you see this? What did you see? Can I count on you as a witness? Take their name, their number, their email if possible. And maybe there's a chance that the police didn't get that. No, the more serious the accident is, the more likely you are to get a much more thorough investigation, right up to the fatal accidents, which generally bring out the county fatal accident unit, which is these people are so well trained and have all the latest toys to do basically complete 360-degree sketches, not sketches, but they take the data from a LiDAR camera, similar to how the self-driving cars work, or a surveyor, and they know where everything is at that scene, and they can take measurements. It's a perfect model or representation of your scene. So fixing point of impact, which of course is so crucial, that will be much simpler. Sight lines, so much information is there from that study. They'll take mountains of pictures. They will interview witnesses. They will go to adjoining businesses and seek camera footage if it's available. Um, I hope that if you're listening to this, you're not dealing with that. It's you've lost a loved one, and it's a very trying experience because you probably won't learn much information at first when they're immediately kind of reviewing and collating the data that they collect from that scene. They then submit all their data to their top people, and these are accident reconstructionists. Of course, they're police, but they've had all kinds of additional training and experience in running the mathematical computations necessary to say, for example, how fast a vehicle was traveling at any given time, or maybe just prior to the moment of impact. Now, they've downloaded perhaps much of this data from the computers in the car, but they can also calculate that from things that they see at the scene, from skid mark to some camera footage. They can eventually get to a very good representation of what actually happened. And that person is sufficiently trained and experienced and educated to write a thorough report as to their opinion as to what happened. And that person can then be put on the witness stand and questioned in front of a jury and offer an opinion because it is within their expert knowledge of how this accident occurred.
Yeah, and to your point, hopefully you never run into this situation, because again, if it's that serious, there's going to be other issues that are probably
Much
more
more
important.
prevalent,
Yeah,
more pressing. And the
more
lawyer can help
pressing.
with that too. But
Yeah,
you've asked me what does a person do? Well, they come to see the lawyer, me or someone else like me, and they explain and they bring what they have. Now, what would they have? They would perhaps have images on their camera, their phone. We all have cameras today. They might have picked up the police report. They might have a discharge papers that they were given from the hospital. They might have insurance in the household, and they'll bring what's called the declaration page. The attorney will review all the documents, of course, sign the client up. Most attorneys are willing to work on contingency, and that means that the attorney will not be paid unless they are successful. In the event they're successful, costs of the case, costs of hospital records, pictures, experts, whatever money that goes out, that's considered a cost. Those are deducted first, and then there is an agreed upon split. It is often 1/3 for an adult in New Jersey, and it's reduced to 1/4 for a minor, and a minor is someone under the age of 18. Once they're signed, then the attorney can begin. And it begins with an evaluation of liability, a review of what's necessary to get or do in that area, and then similarly in medical, it may begin with obtaining the hospital record. But it's certainly there'll be discussions about what are the present complaints and who are the right doctors to take care of that patient. So if they have a broken bone, they need an orthopedist, and so on. But that discussion the client may already have a doctor walking in the door, and that's fine. It's important that the client obtain medical care because it's only through medical documentation that I am able to prove the extent of the injury.
yeah,
There might
absolutely. And
be,
David, yeah,
yeah,
yeah. So we're gonna have to we're running short on time. We got to
yeah,
wrap it up for this episode. So I think that's
okay.
a great conversation to pick up next time. But hey, David, thank you so much for coming today and hopping on and bringing such valuable information.
Thank you, John. Have a good day. I appreciate it.
Absolutely. And to our listeners, thank you for listening to The Advocate's Voice with David Maran and John Clemence. We hope today's conversation helps shed light on what to do and what not to do after a pedestrian accident in New Jersey. And if you or someone you care about has been involved in a personal injury situation, don't wait. Visit njmalpractice.com to learn more or to schedule a free consultation with David and his team. And as always, subscribe to The Advocate's Voice for more real talk and trusted legal insight from the courtroom to your corner of New Jersey.
Thanks for watching. Be sure to hit that like and subscribe button and leave us a review in the comments.